The secret, that didn't exist. For 40 years, it didn't exist. No official records, no confirmation, no acknowledgement. If you asked about it, you'd get silence. Because this wasn't just a secret. It was a ghost. A mission buried so deep beneath layers of classification that even the people involved only knew fragments of the truth. But now, decades later, we can finally piece together what really happened. A story of submarines, of silent oceans, of invisible wars fought in the shadows of the Cold War. This is the story of a spy operation so secret, it stayed hidden for 40 years. The Cold War wasn't fought with armies charging across battlefields. It was fought in silence, in intelligence rooms, behind locked doors, in coded messages and hidden signals. Two superpowers stood on opposite sides of the world, the United States and the Soviet Union, each one trying to outthink, outmaneuver, and outpie the other, because information was power, and the more you knew about your enemy, the closer you were to winning a war that could never be openly fought. At the center of the silent conflict were two shadow organizations, the CIA and the KGB. They didn't just gather information, they hunted it relentlessly, and by the late 1960s, the United States had a problem, a big one. The Soviets were secretive, extremely secretive. Their military communications were heavily guarded, encrypted, shielded from interception. Traditional spying methods weren't enough. Satellites could only see so much. Agents on the ground were limited, and listening posts couldn't reach what mattered most. The U.S. needed something more, something bold, something dangerous, because somewhere beneath the surface, the Soviets were communicating in ways no one could access. And if the U.S. couldn't hear those conversations, they would always be one step behind. Then came a breakthrough. U.S. intelligence discovered something critical. The Soviet Navy relied on underwater communication cables. Massive lines stretched across the ocean floor, connecting key military bases. Secure, hidden, untouchable, or so the Soviets believed. These cables carried some of the most sensitive information in the Soviet military. Orders, strategies, movements. If the U.S. could access those cables, they wouldn't just gain intelligence. They would gain insight into the enemy's mind. But there was a problem. The cables were located deep underwater, in heavily guarded Soviet territory. Reaching them would be nearly impossible. The idea was insane, even by Cold War standards. Send a submarine deep into Soviet waters, locate the underwater cable, and attach a listening device to it, without being detected, without leaving a trace, and without triggering a war. It was risky, extremely risky. If discovered, it could spark an international crisis. Or worse, a direct military confrontation. But the potential reward? Unmatched intelligence. So the mission was approved, and thus began one of the most daring spy operations in history. The mission would require a very specific kind of vessel, not just any submarine, but one capable of deep-sea operations, stealth, precision, endurance. The U.S. Navy selected the USS Halibut, a submarine unlike any other. Originally designed for missile operations, it had been modified for intelligence missions. It carried advanced equipment, specialized tools, and most importantly, a crew trained for the impossible. The mission began in total secrecy. No public knowledge, no media coverage, just a submarine slipping silently beneath the waves. Its destination, the Sea of Okhotsk, a region heavily controlled by the Soviet Union. Protected, monitored, watched. To enter these waters was to risk everything. Detection would mean exposure. Exposure would mean consequences. And consequences could mean war. But the crew pressed on, descending deeper, moving slower, listening to every sound. Because in the depths of the ocean, even the smallest noise could give you away. Finding the cable wasn't easy. The ocean floor is vast, dark, unforgiving. The crew relied on advanced sonar, mapping systems, careful calculations. Every movement was deliberate, every decision critical. Hours turned into days, days into tension, because they weren't just searching for a cable. They were searching for a needle in a pitch-black ocean. And then they found it. There it was, the Soviet communication cable, running silently across the ocean floor, carrying secrets, carrying power. Now came the most dangerous part of the mission, attaching the listening device. The submarine deployed divers, elite specialists, trained for deep-sea operations. They descended into the darkness, equipped with tools, precision instruments, and nerves of steel, because one mistake could cost everything. The device itself was revolutionary. It didn't cut the cable. It didn't interrupt the signal. Instead, it wrapped around the cable, silently capturing the data, recording everything, without the Soviets ever knowing. It was elegant, brilliant, and incredibly effective. Once installed, the device would collect information for months, even years, turning the ocean floor into a listening post. With the device in place, the mission wasn't over. The crew still had to leave, undetected, unnoticed, alive. They retraced their path, slowly, carefully, avoiding detection, listening for any sign of Soviet patrols. And finally, they escaped. The mission had succeeded. What came next was beyond expectations. The data collected from the cable was invaluable, detailed, accurate, unfiltered. For the first time, the United States had direct access to Soviet military communications. They could hear conversations, track movements, understand strategies. It was a breakthrough, a game changer, and it gave the U.S. a significant advantage in the Cold War. The operation continued, repeated missions, more data collection, more intelligence, all without detection. For years, the Soviets had no idea. Their most secure communications were being listened to. Their secrets, no longer secret. It was one of the greatest intelligence successes in history. But no secret lasts forever. In the late 1970s, everything changed. A man named Ronald Pelton made a decision that would end it all. He was a former intelligence analyst, struggling financially, disillusioned, and vulnerable. He approached the Soviets and offered them something priceless: information about the operation. The Soviets acted quickly. They investigated, they searched, and eventually they found the device. The secret was out. The operation was compromised. And just like that, years of silent success came to an end. The discovery had consequences. Trust was shaken, security tightened, and the shadow war continued. But the operation remained classified, hidden, buried, for decades, until finally the truth began to surface. The story of Operation Ivy Bells reminds us of something powerful. The most important battles in history are not always visible. They happen in silence, in secrecy, in the shadows, because sometimes the greatest weapon is information. For 40 years, the world didn't know, but beneath the ocean, history was listening.